Hey
everybody. This is Amani and River at Haven Village in East Tennessee, home of the Haven Earth Trade School. And super excited to bring back some of our favorite people, Kurt and Lucinda from Texas Ready. We relocated from Texas to Tennessee and was really blessed to be working with them and to actually not just have the wisdom from the courses and stuff that you guys offer, but to put in our own Mittleider garden bed. So today's going to be kind of diving into that and why we should be thinking about food sovereignty this time in the winter. So River's going to hop off. We're going to let him say hello. We're going to try to stream here to Instagram as well for the first time.
Yay. Yeah. So good to see you guys again. And, just memories of Texas and our Mittleider garden bed expedition down there at the ranch. And, I was a little bit of a skeptic in the beginning, not because of the technique, because of just our limited time to build it out and tend to it. But and then me having to create a drip irrigation system and all of that. But actually it was like a really enjoyable process. And just everybody who got involved in it just loved so we have a little delay. And it was just so epic, and
I think you guys hear us?
We were hearing just fine up until just a second ago.
Okay. Well, it seems like if we talk on here, it's going to do both. Okay, let's try that. So we'll see if it's working. Go ahead, River. Sorry.
Yeah, I just I was a little skeptical. Imani gets fantasies about things. She goes to a class with Lucinda and spends a whole day, with both of you guys actually, and then I'm like, okay, here we go. River's gonna be building out all this stuff, and Imani's gonna be directing, and she, Imani was like, oh, we'll get it done in a weekend, like a Sunday afternoon. She said, we'll get it all the beds.
Yeah, right. I'd like to see that happen.
Exactly. And so I was like, a little bit of a naysayer, but then we had Jared, one of your stores, come out to our hemp workshop, and he, helped us set it up, and then it was like a little bit of guidance. It's not like super complicated. I learned like the Shishugi band burning technique with Jared. And everybody who got involved, it was actually at the end of our hemp building workshop, we pulled in some of them people on the last day and we're like, hey, you want to come help us build a Mittleider garden beds? And then from then on, we just had this like abundance of like food in this, I don't know how big it was. It was literally 400, 500 square foot little patch of garden in Texas where there's not a lot of water. The soil's not very friendly. And this was, cattle ground and stomped ground, and just bringing in all the minerals and then the sand, and Imani made the connection with the local sawmill and got the sawdust. So we kind of like rallied a lot of people into the mix, and it just turned out to be amazing. Every time anybody come over, like, wow, I can't believe how much stuff is growing in there, like how much is just like overgrowing everywhere. And we honestly couldn't even keep up with taking all the food out of it. It was like, it became an issue. It was like, are we going to take that food out and actually use it? Like, that's probably the best problem to have in the world right now, is you have like too much food grown in your garden. So I'm like a total enthusiast about the Mittleider. We already terraced our ground. We figured out where we're putting our next Mittleider garden beds here in Tennessee. So we terraced that out with our landscape excavator. And just can't wait to get that in and start again in the spring here in Tennessee, because if it can grow like that in Texas, I can't imagine what it's going to be like here in Tennessee.
Be better.
Well, I'll tell you what, River, that was a great testimonial, and I'm going to want to get you to say something like that so we can post it on the front page of our website as a about the course, why it is that this is something you need to be attentive to and pursuing yourself. Yeah, that's great.
So after teaching 40 different methods of gardening, you can see why I was just like, oh my gosh, we have got to do this. When I came across this method, it's so different.
Right, and it's like one energy input of putting all this infrastructure in place. People are like, oh, that's a lot of input, you're doing the wood and I'm like, yeah, but one time after that you're done. it kind of runs itself. I just set the timers on the irrigation system, the drip system. The rest did itself. And that was the great thing about it, is that you put that energy in up front to establish it. But after that, it tends to really care for itself in a lot of ways. All you have to do is harvest it and maybe, make sure there's no bugs or something in there. But I love the big spiders that would get in our cross beams up there, because
that's great.
It is. Yeah, it was really good. And
I'm so excited to see his enthusiasm for putting in our next Mittleider garden beds.
I'm going to be the director next time.
That you only do it once, and here we are in a year doing it twice.
Well, we're in a different place.
Right, of course. And we actually even thought about taking our beds because we were so attached to them, but we did leave them to a good home in Texas, and we're going to work with what we have here. So we're really excited to even expand the gardens and probably do 4 times the size of what we did in Texas. So
nice.
Really having that experience. And then, of course, having you guys out to come teach the Mittleider method here in Tennessee in June, once we have all the beds going, because there's so much. And that's kind of what I want to dive into with Lucinda. And I appreciate you giving that amazing testimonial, River.
Yeah.
Before you take off, River, let me just ask you something. So you mentioned that you were a little hesitant at first, but that you had Jared, who has been building Mittleider beds for us up down here in Houston for some time now, who showed up to your hemp building workshop and helped you guys put those beds in. Now, you could have done it yourself just by following the directions in the book, but having that guy on site who had already been doing it saved you an incalculable amount of time and questions, and just from layout to construction techniques and all this stuff. Having that institutional knowledge, so to speak, there on site was invaluable, right?
Yeah, totally. And I think like the book's great, it has good insight, but I think like that hands-on seeing somebody doing it is really why I think these online courses are where it's at, because I think we just do so much better when we can visually see it rather than an image and a description, which, you kind of almost need to have a certain mind to be able to process that type of information. But I think most people can process information in a video format so much easier than book format. And that, the online stuff, I think is going to be like you said, it's kind of like having someone there who's already done it next to you, guiding you along the way.
Yeah, because we actually did record in the bonus videos us putting together those beds, and we have Jared in there, not just showing it, speaking to it, and some of the details of that, which it is really helpful to have a visual and like to really understand. There's any kind of I think these kind of DIY courses, and that's why YouTube has gotten so popular. I mean, people will call it like YouTube University, right, where you're learning through the videos, and so it is pretty detailed on that. And and the other thing that I like about the course that we put together, we're kind of diving into that with River's testimonial, is that we're doing the live Q&A part every kind of season, so that people can actually have access. Because a lot of times you buy a course and you don't have access to the instructors, but to be able to ask questions. Because I've found that I call Lucinda at various times of the year asking questions, and that your availability to do that, but also to do a Zoom where people can come in and participate in that way, because it's seasonal and everything changes during the season. There's so much ongoing things that you need to learn in the room of growing food that, I mean, I think you're still learning, Lucinda, and what you've been teaching for 20 years.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. So maybe you can give a little bit of background for the people that are new to you and Texas Ready. And you can, if you're not familiar with the Mittleider garden method or Texas Ready, and I know other people talk about it, but maybe how you guys got into the Mittleider method and why you chose this as the method. Because for me, my attraction when I first met you guys was this kind of like a survival gardening method. And I really feel like this is a method that is really important to have in your gardening belt during these times, like where food security is really, really paramount. So that was my interest in reaching out to you guys. And then I think you had a similar path of why you chose this method in particular.
Great. Well, I was teaching at Lone Star College, and I'd actually explored about 39 different methods of gardening. Anything that you can think of, square foot, your Keogh garden, your lasagna garden, all the fad gardens, plus, the traditional organic styles of gardening. But I wasn't really seeing the results that I thought would be enough if a family was going through a down economy where they were totally required to provide food for their family without input from Lowe's, Home Depot, agriculture, or anything. It was on them. And so that was my concern, was none of the methods that were, in the marketplace, I thought were going to be adequate to provide the nutrition that a family was going to need. They weren't predictable enough. Where were you going to get the Epsom salts that you were going to put in your compost heap to help heat it up? All these kind of things. So when we came across the Mittleider method, it was just so mathematically predictable. You could get the calories that a family of 4 needed on a 20th of an acre that would work for a backyard, gardener in a subdivision. That was very attractive to me because those were primarily our customers. Now you have 10, 12 acres that you can devote to, your gardening. That's highly unusual. So anything in between can utilize the Mittleider method. And I also like the method of growing straight up and doing 3-dimensional gardening as opposed to letting stuff sprawl on your land. Because if you're limited in space, that's going to be an issue. Also, less bugs and less problems with going straight up, more control over your produce. So between the providing all the nutrition that the plant needs in a very scientifically predictable way, an easy way through your weekly feed, which we teach people how to make, and the amazing harvest rates. In other words, on a 30-foot trellised tomato plant, series of tomato plants, predictably you should get 615 pounds for every 30 feet of that garden space. Now, there's no other garden system that will tell you the numbers. Now, let's suppose I wanted to have 1 serving of green beans for my family of 4. So that's roughly, I have to do 50 quarts put up because each quart, 16 ounces, is going to have 4 servings for my family of 4. Okay, well, how many linear feet does that require in a garden? There's no other garden method that allows you to back engineer and be predictable about what you need to put up to feed your family. So this is another reason why Mittleider is just worlds ahead of the competition.
And the way that that's done is through the use of this chart, which Lucinda put together, drawing from information from several different resources. And so there are various columns on the chart here, and then on this side right here, you've got the various varieties that one would find, for instance, in our seed banks, whether it's lettuce, tomatoes, spinach, what have you. And so for each different variety, you get the information of how much linear space you're going to need to devote to that item to derive the amount that you want for your family at the end of the year. So, and that includes the spacing between the plants. It includes how much nutrient application you're going to have, the whole works. This chart is only good, however, if you are using the Mittleider system. It would not really work with any other system because the Mittleider system has a lot of very carefully controlled metrics that go along with it that enable you to produce the kind of food that we're talking about in a predictable manner.
So one of the other things that I absolutely loved was seed banks that y'all put together in the ammo boxes. And that was, I think, the first thing I got was the seed box. And then I took the course. Oh, there you got the little mini. And that chart and the book, you get the Mittleider book, because as part of the course, and because I loved this so much, we partnered together because I wanted to record this course. After I did it with you, Lucinda, I mean, I needed to do it again. I couldn't retain all the information. And, you know, I thought, and we were putting in our beds, and I said, why don't we record this so that we can actually document what you all are doing? And there's so many different aspects, and you've even gone further with not just the seeds and the course and the books, the array of books that you have, but you guys have even all of the materials that you need to actually do the food preservation. Like I got my freeze dryer from you. You have your dehydrators and all of that. So it's like a whole package with you. But having this documented in a format that people can learn online, we've gotten rave reviews for the course. I think it's something that you can go back and listen to over and over again, but it also gives people access to you, the resources, so they can get the seed bank and they get the book that they do with the course. What have you guys been hearing from people that have taken the course? I know that you had someone come and visit you the other day that had taken the course.
Yeah, they went through the course, and like you said, there's so much information. The online course, that's right. There's so much information. It's like taking a drink out of a fire hose, but that's okay. They could, rewatch the videos, and they're going through it a second time, taking notes. And I said, hey, you can always pick up the phone if something's confusing to you, whatever. And I'll tell you what page number in the book would give you additional information. I mean, they were talking about, how do I fertilize my orchard? Well, on pages 56 and 57 in the Mittleider book, it tells you it's done 4 times a year at certain seasons, before budding, before this. And I've seen orchards that were not producing at all. And then within 1 year of the Mittleider 4 applications of the minerals, they're now producing pears by the bucket load. And so it's an amazing system. But if you think about it, it just makes a lot of common sense. If you do not give your children vitamin D, they will end up with rickets. If you lack vitamin C, you could have scurvy. That's just one element. Well, that's exactly how plants are. If they're missing one of the 17 required essential elements, you are not going to have the harvest that seed is capable of doing. And so once the Mittleider system provides all the 17 essential elements in the format that the plant wants it, in the time period that the plant wants it, and it's a daily dose because you're watering every single day. And I know that down in San Antonio, where you were before, there was a drought going on, and you would be watering 1 minute in the morning, 1 minute at night, and that was adequate. And so again, we have a very efficient, sustainable system. And by the way, this is an organically styled system. We don't market ourselves as that because there's some government requirements that we're not willing to, come under. But every product that is in the fertilization mix is something that an organic farmer can purchase. So that also helped me a lot to feel comfortable that this is something.
Right, because that's something that people ask a lot about, being an organic method. And there's a lot of controversy because all of that has been hijacked by, the organic standards and all of that. And for me, it's really everything that I ultimately end up doing in my life is from an instinctual kind of internal knowing that of what's right, not the governing agencies that are going to tell me how things need to be labeled so that we can go under that kind of influence. But the mineral mix, Lucinda, I have to tell you, because we haven't really caught up much in the last couple of months. We've been so busy here at the Haven Village here in Tennessee, but there were a few plants, a few orchards, and that's the mineral mix. And what we've been doing, I have Therese mixing it up, and I've been putting it on everything here. Like we had some pear trees, right? So we planted some pears and apples, but I've been putting the minerals on, and there were some things that literally came back to life. And we had, and flowers, like I had some flowers that shouldn't have been, they were in a little bit of a shady area. They would have liked more sun. They were blooming like crazy, like just like fireworks. It was just, I put it on everything that needs to come back to life. And it's like miraculous. And that is the key. And it's one of the things, so people ask, well, how is this a survival method if we have to have this fertilizer, and how do we get that? Like,
that is a great question. And that is one of, again, the key reason why Texas Ready is so behind this Mittleider method. A family of 4 that needs to provide calories for their kids for 1 full year only requires a very small, you're going to need about 50 pounds of NPK. You're going to need 8 pounds of Epsom salts, and you're going to need one of our mineral packs, and a little bit of calcium and so forth. if you wanted to store up ingredients for your garden for 5 full years, the space that's required is 1 cubic yard. That'll fit under a card table. So visually, if you, like me, feel like, ooh, we might have 10 years where we have to provide our own food, that's simply 2 card tables. That is not a lot of space.
And
I love that you guys have figured this out. This is one of the things I love so much about you.
And it never goes bad.
Oh,
so these are just ground up minerals. So the worst thing that could happen to them is that they might hydrolyze and cake up or something from moisture in the air, which is no big deal. You just beat them out and they're fine. So 200 years from now, they're not going to be any different than they are today. So you can store up as much as you want and not have to worry about it. And it's not the sort of thing that somebody's going to break into your garage and steal. They're not even going to know what it is. It's just a bunch of bags of powder. The trace elements, which is what we sell in these packs, this is the hard part. This is the stuff that you're going to have a hard time sourcing. Now, the recipe for the nutrition is given in this book. So if you wanted to go to the trouble, you could put it together yourself from each individual element. The problem is you've got things inside this trace element pack that we sell, which you may have to buy a 50-pound bag in order to get a half a cup of something. So you're going to have a very difficult time finding some of this stuff in the amount that you actually need. And some of this stuff is very difficult to source because it might be on a list somewhere. And so there are certain regulations that apply to interstate shipping and so forth on some of these things. And so we've just made it easy for you. And you're not going to save money by doing it yourself. I can guarantee you that. Especially if your time is worth anything.
Right.
So one of these bags will cover a family of 4 for an entire year. And that's in Houston, where we're gardening year round with 3 garden seasons. Okay. So this bag is $25. And if you buy 5 of these, you get them for $100. So for $20 a year, you're getting all the trace elements that you need. So if you want to buy 10 years worth, that's $200.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing compared to what you're going to spend on anything else on your list. So it's just very simple. It's very easy. It's very inexpensive. And that's why we have decided to do this ourselves. Because if you want to do it by compost and the traditional methods, you don't know what you're putting into your garden. You don't know what the mix of mineralization is, or even if all of the minerals are even present. You're going to go through so much work and effort. A 10-foot high pile of compost generates what? How many inches?
About 6 to 7 inches of usable dirt that you would put into your garden beds.
So that is just a huge amount of work. And for one thing, if you're in all you have is a backyard, you can't get that much organic material to even generate a 10-foot pile of compost. And if you did, it's going to be grass clippings, and who knows who's sprayed what on that stuff that you don't want to put into your garden. There are just so many different reasons that when we found out about this was the key that unlocked the whole secret to real food security for a family who's concerned about that issue.
Right. And I love that you bring that point up because obviously you can do that. It's not saying don't compost and don't do that, but it's the amount of time and the hours that it takes to do that. This is and I love hacks. So this is like a gardening hack, really, like to get the same or better results in a quicker, more efficient way. And
let me just kind of boil it down. So if you take compost or a fish, fish is a great thing. You want to put it, you throw that in your garden. That fish doesn't do anything for your plants until it breaks down into its constituent elements, and then the roots can pull that up out of the soil, and the fish will feed the plant. Well, that's what this stuff is. These are the elements that you would get from a fish or whatever it is, but it's already broken down. So in the Mittleider system, you're sprinkling this nutrition right down the root line, and then the irrigation system is a 3/4 inch PVC pipe that every time you turn it on, it sprays on that powder and dissolves it down into the root zone. So every time you water your plant, you're also feeding your plant, and it can take it up immediately. So when you're talking about a hack, this is what it's all about.
It's for the same reason people drink superfood smoothies. I mean, I sold in my cafe for a decade. Like, you're taking all of those nutrients and you're grinding it up and mixing it so that your body can absorb it. And basically, we're doing the same thing for our gardens, for the soil. It's a maximum efficiency of how they can take it in. And to the point earlier when River was on at the beginning, we were in a serious drought in Texas when we did our Mittleider garden bed last year. And that watering system where you're using because you guys have mastered that being in Texas. Like, here in Tennessee, we don't have to worry about that so much because we have a lot more water. But if you're in an area, I love that Mittleider can grow in any climate, any kind of soil and any climate. And because you're using the exact measurements. And I remember you saying, listen, you got to use the exact, like, follow it exactly. And I'm not always good at that, but I did implement this method and got the results, because it's like, you know, the amount of nutrients that you need, you know, the amount of water, you're not wasting water that you need to be, especially in an area where you need to conserve. So I think the preciseness of it actually makes it more simple if you can really follow the system.
So it's a system that's so simple that 8-year-olds can follow it. Now, if you're someone that likes to, you know, twist and to tweak and all of this, maybe your personality isn't going to do as well. But someone that just follows the little.
I am that person, but I did it, Lucinda.
I know. Well, see, it was tough, but the fruit, the results are the motivation for someone that's a free spirit like you and I.
Yeah.
Now, someone like Kurt, that's an exacting German, you know, mathematical accountant type mindset. You know, this is a breeze, because it's like, oh, well, you know, this day I do this task and so forth. And I know it's going to cost this much. And I know that I'm going to have, you know, X number of quarts of produce at the end of the game. I mean, this is a dream system for those kind of personalities. So it is a wonderful system. I would like to point out one additional scientific fact. And a lot of people say, you know, everything has to be organic. Okay, fine. Do you know that plants cannot receive any nutrition organically? Just like Kurt was saying, it has to be broken down from an organic format to an inorganic format. And that takes a lot of time. And so that plant is hungry during that time. It's not able to access those molecules. So this system bypasses that delay by giving it materials that it can uptake in their roots immediately from day one. So that means that your plants are going to grow quicker, finish faster. Well, the deer don't have as many opportunities to get free meals, do they, out of your garden? Because we can get many more turns of crop in the garden by using the system, because we're providing everything that the plant needs when it needs it in the format that it needs it. So there's no reason why that plant is not going to do everything that God, you know, has established within that seed family. So
yeah, go ahead.
It's important to note, Lucinda said earlier, I just want to make sure people understand that they did hear her correctly. We water 1 minute in the morning and 1 minute at night. That's it. Even in the hot Houston summer, that's all we're giving our plants, because the matrix that we have the plants growing on is a mixture of sand and sawdust, which in and of itself provides no nutrition to the plants, because we're giving them the nutrition that they need. But it captures that water and releases it throughout the day to the roots so that they always have water available. But we're not watering the weeds. We're not watering the grass. We're not watering the aisles. We've got, like I mentioned, a PVC pipe that runs right down the root line of the garden bed, so that when you're watering, it sprays right down into the roots of the plants you're trying to grow. It doesn't spray 6 inches to either side. It's just watering your plants. So you turn that water on, it sprays down. Earlier, River mentioned putting in drip lines. That's kind of not what this is. A drip line is a different thing. This is actually a spraying kind of system. He understands that. He just used the wrong term. But this sprays down onto the nutrients and dissolves them into the root zone over a 1 week period of time until you make your next application.
Yeah. And that exactly, that was kind of the experience with us being able to have it where you're not watering the whole garden bed, you know, I mean, and you're just using that exact amount of water. Lucinda, you mentioned deer. And the other thing I want to say, and for those of you that are just tuning in, we did our Mittleider garden beds in Texas last spring, and we're doing them again here in Tennessee at the Haven Village. So we wanted to learn it, even though we knew we weren't going to stay there in that location. I convinced River, let's just do this because I want to have this experience. If we don't do it now, I don't know when it's going to get done, and I don't know how I'm going to learn it. I just needed that hands-on application of that. And I wanted to record it. So we recorded the whole class, and that's what's available to everyone on our website at havenearthtradeschool.net, because I was slightly obsessed with you guys in the method. I was just like, I need to capture this because I didn't find any kind of course like this online anywhere. And I think that you guys have really, you provide such a comprehensive view of just the course, but everything else that you do, like having the seeds and having the minerals and having all of the resources that come along with this. But the other thing about it is the space around, like the space of the garden beds. Like we're talking specifically about planting, but it's specifics on how you build the garden beds, the space in between it, the fence like around it so that the animals aren't eating the super nutritious food that you're growing. So everything that you need to learn to be able to successfully do this method, including how to put the beds together, we've outlined in the course with lots of bonus videos that I even took when I came out to your ranch when I met you guys a year and a half ago. So it's just kind of packed full. So I know people aren't necessarily thinking of planting a garden the week of the holidays coming up, but we wanted to give people a chance to give this gift to those that they love, or for anyone that really is concerned about food sovereignty, to go and take 50% off. Kurt, maybe you can jump in while I cough.
Yeah, let me mention something, because when you approached us about doing this class for the Haven of Earth Academy, it was the perfect timing. And I say that because of this. We have been doing classes in person for years here in Houston, especially since COVID. Everybody was just kind of camping out locally. So we were focusing on the local Houston market. And we were filling these classes every time we do it with 50 people, but we couldn't really address more than that. We didn't have the facility to do it with more people than that. But, you know, if you weren't living in Houston or weren't willing to make the drive or to fly in, which some people did, but that's a big deal, then you couldn't access the material. So the online course was something that we realized really needed to happen. And a lot of people have been asking for it. But the reason the timing was so cool is about a month before you planned on or asked us to do this, the pastor who lives right across the street from me here at our Texas Ready shop came across the street. He comes in the shop. He says, "Hey, Kurt," he says, I'm about ready to start gardening in my backyard. What gardening system should I use?" Well, he knew that we were selling seeds, but he didn't really know that we were doing this whole gardening thing. I said, "Doug, you have no idea the relevance of that question right here in this spot. Let me show you something." So I introduced him to the Mittleider system, and he's the analytical type that I am. He says, "Oh my gosh, this is exactly what I want." And so he went home and he did a whole spreadsheet on the garden, and he was doing the formulas and everything and it was just amazing. So I said, "Look, take this book, follow the directions, and you should be okay. Just follow the directions. Don't screw with anything. Just do what you're told." And so he did. So he had no input other than the book from me. He didn't go to a course, didn't do a video. He just went home and he did this in his backyard. So now when it came time to film the class, I had not yet seen his garden. But I asked him, I said, "Doug, would you mind it if we filmed our video course in your backyard? Because now we've got a virgin bed here that we've not even seen, and we're going to be able to describe how it's supposed to be done, and then we're going to go look at your bed," you know? And he said, "No, that would be great." So that made the course perfect, because that's what we do. We start off talking about getting your infrastructure in. how do you build the bed? How do you do the irrigation? How many feet apart and how long and how wide and your bed placement, sunlight issues, all this stuff we go into in detail. And then at the end of the infrastructure session of the course, we say, okay, now let's go see what Doug did. So we walk the camera over there and Lucinda and I say, okay, Doug, you did a great job on this and that, and this is perfect and this looks great, but you kind of messed up here. You kind of messed up here, right? Your bed placement, that's really not good for the following reasons, okay? So that's why I was asking River earlier. I said, when Jared came out to help you build those beds, you had experience on site and you were able to avoid making some mistakes that you would have made otherwise.
Yeah.
And the fact that we can turn and look at Doug's bed and critique that and say, this is a mistake, that if your mindset wasn't going in that direction, you would have read the book and you might have done that and it would have been a mistake because you didn't understand the big picture. So that is why this course is so important. If you just buy the book, yeah, you can Mittleider garden and that'll be fine. And you're going to look back down the road and you're going to say, you know, I should have done this. I shouldn't have done that. This course is going to save you a tremendous amount of time and aggravation and money.
Absolutely.
So for whatever you wind up paying for the course, at the end of the day, you're going to say, you know, that was one of the smartest moves we made, is to take that online course, because this is 5 hours of intense targeted instruction based on years of experience in our own gardens, as well as what other people have done that we've been familiar with or that we've been involved with. So I just want to reiterate that learning from other people's mistakes is huge.
Totally second that. I mean, I would not have been able to do it with just the book at all. And I wouldn't, even just being able to call you guys and doing the course, like the in-person course. When we recorded it, obviously I'm learning at a new level, right? Because you're listening to it over and over again. It's like it gets ingrained, and it's just, there's so much information. It's simple, but there's a lot to take in. And one of the things that people have said about the course that they love is that they can go back to it anytime and any section that they want, because it's broken into all those sections. So because you're obviously building your beds first, so you're going to stay on that section, and it takes a minute to get that figured out. There's a lot of logistics with the irrigation and all that. And you do want to get it right, because I think that if we can save people probably even thousands of dollars, because there's an investment, or definitely hundreds. I mean, what size that you do, and then being able to just get the ingredients from you guys and the resources, that's a tremendous, just having access to you guys is a tremendous resource.
So in the course, as you mentioned, we've got it's broken up into units, right? So we give an introduction to the Mittleider system so people can wrap their mind around what that actually means and why this is a benefit. Why would I even want to be doing this? And then we go into the infrastructure. How do we build our beds? How do we place our beds? How do we prepare the ground beforehand? What do we put into the bed? And also, let me just mention this. It doesn't have to be in a raised bed. That's what we teach and that's what we use, because there are certain real advantages to that. But it can also be done in the ground. So I just want to make sure anybody listening to this understands that you can use Mittleider in the ground as well. So when I'm talking about building a bed, that doesn't mean you actually have to build a bed. That's your decision. All right. But we talk about how the beds are built. We also introduced the Shishugi band method, which we didn't know about when we first built our beds 8 years ago, but which we have implemented now. And I'm in the process of replacing all of our beds with the treated lumber that's been burned and oiled, which is this Japanese method. And we show that in the video. We show how that's done and what it looks like and why you would want to do that. Then we talk about irrigation. How do we get our water to the bed? How do we drill our pipes, get all that into place? There are things tweaks that we do as Texas Ready that you will not see in the book, that should be in the book, but they didn't think about it. But we little things like we want a screw attachment on our lines rather than just hard gluing it in place, and now I can't remove the line to clean it out or get it out of the way. I mean, that's so obvious, but it's not in the book, and you're not going to, and if you just follow the directions, you're not going to get that, right? And then we go into seeds. Okay, how do we pick seeds? What kind of seeds do we use? Where do we get those seeds? What are we looking for when we're buying seeds? Then we go into, okay, now we've talked about the infrastructure. We've talked about the seeds. Now, how do we put all this into practice? That's where Lucinda comes in. She talks about seedlings, how to start seeds from seedlings before we actually begin our gardens. We grow those in our house. How do we feed them? How do we water them? How do we give them light? And then how do we transplant them into the garden? Then how do we cultivate those seedlings to grow into nice productive plants that are not yielding leaves, but yielding produce, right? We don't want a nice, beautiful, leafy tomato plant that doesn't have tomatoes on it. We'd much rather see just a spindly tomato plant that's just loaded with tomatoes. That's what we're doing this for, right? And then how do we preserve that food, or how do we harvest that food? Then how do we go on to preserve and store it? Now, we don't get into the...
And save seeds.
And save the seeds, right? And that's, well, and not just save the seeds, right? How do we preserve the integrity of our heirloom breeds? Mm-hmm. So if you're gardening with a Rutgers tomato, which is an heirloom breed, and that's what you want to be able to save seed from for your next garden and grow the same thing again, how do we protect that tomato from being cross-pollinated by some other variety? Now we've got a hybrid and we've lost our genetics. So we need to protect against that. And then we also need to know how to take that seed that we know we have protected and then properly save it so it's going to give us the most healthy, vibrant, productive plant when we go to plant it again in the next season. So all of that is covered in our 5-hour course. It's all broken down into units. So you can, if you're interested in seed saving, you go to that unit. If you're interested in irrigation, you go to that unit. It's all very highly structured. It all has handouts, which are also available on your website. So when they go to the course, each unit will have its own section of handouts. You'll download that PDF file, so you will be able to follow along with what we're saying without having to scribble it all down as we're going, right? So it is very well thought out, very well laid out. Lucinda and I may not be the best presenters in the world, but you'll get over that. The information, though, is there, and it's solid, and it's actionable.
Well, and the format that you just outlined, Kurt, is the format that you guys have been teaching in your day-long workshop for a decade. So that was already, you guys figured that out. Really what we did is documented it and made it so that people could go back. And I think you guys are awesome presenters. We had so much fun doing it that it was just, the whole experience has been so positive. So anybody that's tuning in, we would love to give you that discounted price through the holidays, just to get you inspired to start growing food or getting your mind and getting ready to grow food in the spring, wherever you are. And this is not just for people in the States. Somebody said, can I do this in the UK? This is an online course. That's the beauty of it. You can do it from anywhere you are in the world and from your laptop or computer, wherever you are, and it's going to be available for you. And you can tune in to these live Zooms. I think we're going to schedule our next live Zoom after the new year. That way people can come on and ask any questions that they might have specific to their growing experience. Anything that you want to add, Lucinda? I know went on a lot longer than we thought, but I think this has been great overview of what's in the course.
I think the course is just the beginning of a long-term relationship. Texas Ready has people going back over a decade that are our personal friends now. So we encourage the people that have questions, call me. When you're standing at Home Depot ready to buy A or B product, call me if it's confusing. And we offer that service just because we want you guys to be very successful. We stand on the shoulder of giants that have been, instrumental in our agriculture and many other things. And we want to give back. And so we invite those phone calls.
And
do we have time for we have time for Lucinda to just briefly talk about where we are right now? It's Christmas time. Should we be thinking about our spring garden right now, Lucinda, and what should we be doing? Why is this relevant at this moment?
Well, you want to make sure that infrastructure is in. And so let's go through the holidays. So after January, your resolution is to be a food provider for your family. Great. You're going to need to stockpile the materials. Okay, that's something that can be done when the weather is poor. You're going to be wanting to get your pipes drilled properly. That's a task that can be done now. So anyway, you can prep what you're going to be growing in the spring, summer, in climates that you can't grow year round. Like we can grow year round, and we have winter vegetables just going crazy right now. But if you're up in Detroit, that is not going to be the happening deal. You're, figuring out how to shovel that snow. But you can be productively preparing for the spring garden. So if you don't have your garden beds in, let me encourage you, January to April, that's the time that you can get all that infrastructure that River was talking about behind you, and do it right. Do it once, do it right.
And what about seedlings when we start?
Well, it depends on what your average date of last frost is. And so you're going to make a phone call to the Agriculture Extension Office in your county. You're going to get that date, or you can go onto one of the government sites, plug in your zip code, and type average date of last frost, and up will come a date. Let's suppose it's April 15th. A good date. So then you're going to take your chart and you're going to find out it takes 6 weeks to get your cabbage family seedlings prepared. All right. So that means the middle of February, you should be on a seed tray starting your seedlings that are going to go into your garden April 15th. But if you didn't have this chart, how would you know when you should start your seedlings? See, this thing is all back engineered very scientifically. So yes, we should be thinking about what food we're going to be putting in. The alternative is you don't do that, and now you have to pay, in that last amount, I saw $3.58 at Home Depot per plant. No, that's not affordable. When it's pennies on the
plants
dollar.
that you would want to be growing either, Lucinda. So it's like
because the seed, you can't gather seed from a lot of that because it's hybrid. So absolutely, if final produce at Walmart the other day was $3 for 3 beets. I was appalled because for 3 cents, I could have made a seedling that would have produced that $3 item. So if you want to save a lot of money, gardening is the way to do it. Plus, your nutrition is so much healthier. You pull it out of the garden, it doesn't have that 2-week delay from picking to plate. Your kids are going to get highly nutritive value, at least double what you would get in the stores. And they've done studies on the decline of nutritive value from a 2-week delay from getting into your kids on your kids' dinner plates. So if you want good nutrition, you want to know what's in that garden, you've got control,
right?
By having a good garden. And the highest nutritive values are established by the BRICS index, the BRICS scale. It's a scientific scale. All agriculture majors know about this. All plants that you eat have an established benchmark. The Mittleider stuff, at the end of the day, we've tested it through the BRICS method, is off the charts. So there's a good, better, best category in the BRICS methodology, and we are getting excellent results. So all I can say is that everywhere you look about a quality garden system, Mittleider hits all cylinders.
Awesome. This was great. We had a lot of people tuning in from all over the world. So I'm really grateful for both of you that you've come into my life and that I can not just empower myself, but as many other mamas and other families out there to really grow their own food, because taking that food security into our own hands is essential for the future of all of our future generations. So appreciate you guys so much. This was really awesome. And thanks everyone for tuning in. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You can go to havenearthtradeschool.net. You can actually email us there, join the mailing list, and you can sign up for the online course, Mittleider Gardening with Texas Ready. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Love you guys.
Love you guys.